Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Luxury Living Podcast. As ever, if you found us, please like or share or do whatever you need to do to let everybody else know about how much fun you're having listening or viewing the Luxury Living Podcast. With me, as usual, is Keith. Hello, Keith. How are you?
I'm great. Nigel, how are you doing?
I'm great. And our special guest this week is Marc Fisher, the president of Origin Acoustics. Hello, Marc. Thank you for joining us.
What is going on?
Well, what's going on is we're going to talk about sound and audio and how you can get the best sound experience in a home. But I thought before that, within the industry, you're a very well-known person, but maybe some of our clients don't know you. So maybe you could just start by telling us a bit about you and how you got to wear that fabulous T-shirt.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of my favorite T-shirts. I wear this one typically when doing any type of podcast, when I'm on the evening news or, being interviewed by a celebrity. This is the typical shirt that I wear because it is very comfortable. I got into this business about 25 years ago. I started actually in the pro business, doing, sort of touring pro audio for bands and clubs and DJs and things like that. And I got stuck into the business by actually a headhunter had called and looking for a salesperson in the region. And I jumped right into it and started my business in the world working for other speaker companies till eventually, 5-6 years ago, Jeremy Burkhart, the founder and chairman of the company, reached out to me and said, hey, I'm starting a new company. And it's called Origin Acoustics. And I'd love for you to come over and be a partner in our organization. And I said, yeah, I could be interested. And so Jeremy and I had several conversations. I met Jeremy's cousin, Nick Berry, who was the CEO of the company. And, he would be the guy that I'd be working with on a sort of daily basis. And we hit it off pretty quickly. We just, everything about us kind of clicked in terms of how we would work together and how the vision of our organization would move forward. And from there, the rest is history.
That's great. So to someone who's maybe the first time they've met Origin, tell me what you guys do, what are sort of businesses you're in?
Absolutely. So Origin Acoustics was founded 6 years ago, and we are in primarily the speaker manufacturer business. So we, produce, engineer, design, and manufacture any type of architectural loudspeaker. So that could be something that would go into the ceiling, into the walls, maybe outside of your house. It's all encompassing of the audio world.
Okay, so let's play what sometimes we call the cocktail party game, which is you've met someone at a cocktail party and they say to you, oh, sound in my home, that's great. How do I get the best sound in my home? What the heck do you tell them?
I say call a professional.
Well, that's why they're talking to you.
That's why they're talking to us. I get that all the time. It's funny because I typically am wearing my company shirt somewhere or somehow. And, somehow all the conversation always comes up, well, what do you do for a living? And what do you do for a living? And, people typically want to talk about what I do for a living versus what they do for a living. I tend to bring fun and excitement into people's homes. And it's all about delivering an incredible audio experience into people's homes. And I've talked to all the right people. And, I kind of share what we do with them. And then typically I'll take that person and say, hey, listen, let me connect you to, an audio specialist in the area that can help meet with you and discuss with you your audio needs and go from there.
Okay, so I get that, but I want to dig down because you used a phrase which is architectural in the context of sound. So as someone relatively new to the industry, that I didn't know what that meant. So what should people be thinking about when they use when you use that phrase?
Architectural audio. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, back in the day, if you go back 25, 30 years ago, speakers were typically, either a bookshelf speaker or a tall speaker that would sit in the room somewhere. And they're great. The performance of them are fantastic. They typically tend to be a little bit bigger and larger. And sometimes they don't exactly line up with the look and the feel of a customer's home. So what they're looking to do is to figure out ways to make that audio disappear. And how do you make that audio disappear? By architectural audio. And what that means is basically by taking the products and blending it in to the house, whether it be into a wall or into a ceiling or into a floorboard or into the floor itself. We take the products and we sort of blend them in to whatever the room nuance would be.
So I guess that then leads us to the question of let's go a bit through matching design, because I think people don't necessarily understand the options they have, do they, to make sure the design, the beautiful design they've spent all this time building on their home, can actually be matched with the audio equipment they're installing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have if you're putting a theater into, let's say, your living room, right, and you have a beautiful fireplace and a TV, and you have some beautiful cabinetry on the side and everything's clean, and for that, let's say for this example, there's nothing on the shelves, everything, just a few pictures. The last thing you might want there is a big chunky speaker on the shelf. So instead, what they might do is take the products and blend them into the ceiling so you don't see them at all. So you'd be looking at a TV, looking at the wall, clean and crisp, nothing standing out, but yet still hearing that incredible sound coming at you, unlike just listening to it from a TV, but coming from the ceiling and hearing an incredible sound versus, just a typical TV sound.
So, Mark, one of the stories you always hear about architectural speakers is just that you're making a big compromise over using a bookshelf speaker or a tower speaker. What are y'all doing to make sure that, or what are you seeing done to make sure that it is not a big compromise?
Keith, that's a great question. That really is. So if you go back to the early the 70s, right? Two guys, Ed Haase and Ken Humphreys. They were the actual founder of the first, call it, in-wall speaker. And what they basically did was they had taken a bookshelf speaker, and a bookshelf speaker, is a box, right? And on the front is what they call the baffle, the front baffle. And that's where the driver and the tweeter are mounted, right? It's typically a two-way speaker. They took that off the bookshelf, right? So now you have this box that's behind it. And now you have the front baffle. And what they did was they took that and said, listen, instead of putting it on the box and then putting it on a shelf, let's take this out, okay? Now let's put a mounting mechanism on it. Now remember, this was in the 70s they were doing this, and they took this product and they said, well, why don't we put it inside the wall? In fact, the very first product they built was actually built to go into a mobile home. That's how it actually started. So they took this product and because who wants car speakers in a mobile home? They wanted an actual, good-looking speaker in a mobile home. So they took that product and they designed it to go into the wall. Now, most speakers, in-wall and in-ceiling speakers, are designed with something called an infinite baffle, which means it's designed to have as much room as it possibly can behind it. Obviously somewhat sealed, but it's supposed to have a lot of room. So they took that speaker and they mounted it into the wall. Now you have the front baffle mounted into the wall, somewhat similar to a bookshelf, but the wall is now much bigger. You have more space. And it's basically pulling the air that's inside the wall and pushing it outside the wall. Now, go 50 years forward. Now you're 90s, 2000. Now we're into 2020. Well, what they've done is they've determined that, okay, this speaker is going to be built into a wall. A typical stud bay is 16 inches wide, maybe 4 inches to 6 inches deep, and anywhere from 8 to 14 inches tall, or 8 to 14 feet tall, with insulation in it. They've designed these speakers now knowing that the back of the speaker is going to be mounted into a wall that has that type of cavity. So that loss that you might think you're getting is not happening today. I mean, they are designing the speakers to be mounted in the wall. So you're not losing anything, except sometimes you're actually gaining more because you're gaining a bigger box. And the bigger the box, typically the better the speaker will play.
So with that said, there's still a huge variance in where that speaker goes. Like you said, insulation, no insulation, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. Where do you see DSP, digital signal processing, and electronics coming in as a part of that. Like, is that a necessary part of getting the absolute best out of your home and out of your equipment? Or
to be honest, Keith, I'm 50-50 on it, right? I mean, a digital signal processor basically is taking an amplifier and telling it exactly what frequencies to send to that speaker for the best performance it can possibly give you, right? Now, if you want to go back to the let's call it the early 90s, I'm sure everybody here at one point in their life went into a Bose demo store, right? And if you went into it, right, it was the best thing you could ever imagine. You'd go in and you'd sit down and you'd be looking at these two enormous speakers, and they would play this, and you would get, and your mind would go, your hair would go back. You'd be like, this is amazing. And then we go, yes, it is. And they would open it up, and what would be behind it?
Nothing.
Tiny.
Two little tiny speakers, right? And you go, how did you get all that out of those two little speakers? And that was because of DSP, right? I mean, they were optimizing that speaker. Having an amplifier designed specifically for that speaker is going to give you better performance without a doubt. So the advantage of having a DSP on a speaker is absolutely going to help her perform better. But at the same time, there's also times when a speaker will go on the wall and you DSP that speaker, and it might not sound as good as it did beforehand because, there's all the things in the room that you have to play with it. And of course, you have the most important part, which nobody ever talks about.
The room.
The room and the human ear, right? And the human ear, believe it or not, Keith, Nigel, yours are different than mine. I have beautiful ears. Nigel, you have cute ears, right?
Yeah.
Our ears are all different, and we all hear things differently. It's the same thing with how we eat something, right? Everything tastes different. So if I DSP a speaker, Keith, and you love the way that speaker sounds, that's fantastic. But that might not be the way that I like it to sound. And I think that's a big part of what a lot of people miss when it comes to audio, which is it is 100% selective to each individual and what they think it sounds like.
Okay, but I want to go back one small step, which is you could put the speaker in the ceiling or you could put it in the wall. How would you decide which to use when?
Oh, that's like the toughest question, right? It has a lot to do with, what's on the wall. If you have a brick wall, you can't put the speakers in the wall. They have to go in the ceiling. If you have a ceiling that's sloped in an odd direction, then you can't put the speakers in the ceiling because the sound's going to come at you kind of weird, right? Then you have to move it to the wall. I mean, obviously, people will tell you that the best way, and I would agree, the best way to put the speakers is in the wall firing at you. But obviously, that's not always conducive based upon the setup of the room. My den in my other room, I have a 5.1 home theater system that's in the ceiling. The technology today allows the speakers to be angled in the ceiling to give you a better listening experience. And I think that's a big thing that helps today.
So I thought earlier you were going to talk about the room and acoustics, and I want to follow up on that. So if you look behind you, you have an acoustic treatment. Pretty awesome. How important do you think, like if you had to kind of rank the quality of the speaker, the quality of electronics, the room and the acoustics of the room, how do you kind of put that all together in a matrix that helps you decide kind of where to spend your money and effort?
Absolutely. So let's take a $25,000 let's take $100,000 pair of tower speakers and a $50,000 amplifier, right? We're talking the best of the best of the best products you can buy, right? The products that are going to deliver the best optimal sound. And you put them in your room, and the entire room is made of glass. And you got hardwood floors, and if you clap your hands, what do you get? An echo.
Terrible echo.
Terrible echo, right? room acoustics is almost, if not more important than the products that you're putting into it, right? If I give you a Lamborghini and tell you to go as fast as you can down a dirt road with rocks, that Lamborghini is not going to perform well. You're going to need to buy a truck, right? Or you're going to need to smooth out the road. It's exactly the same thing with acoustics. You can have the best speakers in the world, but what's really very important is making sure that the room acoustically is set to handle that type of product. So in this room specifically, in my office behind me, I have a product called Art Novian. And Art Novian is what we call acoustical artwork, right? So as you can see behind me, it looks like a nice piece of artwork, right? They're actually wooden slats. This is what we call a diffuser, and it absorbs the sound. It takes the sound and it's got grooves all cut inside of it that allows the sound to go in and then come back out, but it breaks up the frequencies. And using the right type of acoustical paneling in a room makes an enormous difference on how a system will sound. Now, along with that, you have carpet in the room, you have a sofa in the room, you have furniture in the room, you have angles, all of those things all help make a room sound better. But to truly optimize a room, having a professional come in and taking a read on the room and determining what will make it sound better. Now, I know what you're thinking, guys. Like, who wants a lot of big foam panels in the room? Nobody, right? I mean, we're not trying to make it look like a recording studio. That's why this company that we work with, which we are the North America distributor for, called Art Novian, all of the products that we designed are, whether they're contemporary or old style or log cabinets, we have tons of different designs that blend in to the environment that you're living in. In fact, Keith, like behind you right there, is that an acoustical panel behind you?
No, there's some up there though, but I had to hide them because they're ugly.
Right, but behind you is a piece of artwork, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I could actually make that piece of artwork into an acoustical panel. So it would still look like a piece of artwork on your room, but it would have characteristics that would help with the audio in the room.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference, though, isn't there? I mean, I think Art Novian is an incredible source, and I think people don't know about it. The other side of this is you've also sometimes got to insulate between the rooms, and I'm guessing that's something that can have an effect, but the builder has to be there with you. So there's between the rooms and then within the rooms, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the between the rooms is a very unique spot. If you ever been to a movie theater and you sit in a movie theater, if you notice you can't hear the theater next to you, in case you're curious, it's very interesting how they build that. They'll build two separate walls, and they leave about 6 inches in between those two walls. And obviously those walls are insulated, but there's this dead air space that's in between the two rooms, and that's what deadens the sound from traveling from one room to the next.
I guess the other subject here, Keith, that comes up a lot for us, I know, is the question of subwoofers. And I know we've been in conversations before. How many subwoofers is enough, and how do I hide these ugly ass things?
Well, that's like saying how much power in a car is too much, right? I mean, I'll take as many subwoofers as you can in a room. Yeah, I mean, it's really based on your taste of what you like to listen to, right? In a dedicated theater, I have, in my theater downstairs, I have 2 large dedicated 15-inch theaters, part of our marquee theater system. And they're probably too much for the room. It's a lot, but I got them turned down, and it delivers just the right amount of low pressure for me. In different rooms, there's different applications for different type of subwoofers. There's a famous saying in the audio world that says there is no replacement for displacement. And what that basically means is that low end frequencies, that thump, what you feel, what gives you that car crash and rumbles through you, that's a very, very hard frequency to recreate. It's a very low frequency. It's tough. It's sort of like when you go to a concert, there's a lot of subwoofers, a lot of low end subs, because that's a hard frequency to move. You're pushing a lot of air to get that vibration that you get in the room, or that sound that you get. In a typical room, we build, for example, we build small, tiny subwoofers, several different sizes to put on the floor, to hide under cabinets, or hide under like a coffee table, or put in the corner of the room. And then we also build now subwoofers that are more popular that go into the wall. So, it would take up the whole cavity of the wall in a sealed box, and it will move that air out that way. And of course, the last option, which is the most popular now, is in-ceiling subwoofers, or subwoofers that go into like a pantry or an in-floor subwoofer. What's very unique about that is there's typically two speakers inside of a box that fire at each other that cancel out that vibration that usually you hear from room to room to room, sort of as if when that Pontiac GT drives past you and the windows are vibrating and you can hear it. That's what we kind of eliminate. And that sound is what comes out of that tube into the room. So you're still able to get that subwoofer feeling, that low end feeling that finishes the sound of the music or the movie you're listening to, but you don't have to see it because it's buried in the ceiling.
I think we get a lot of feedback from clients that they don't want to shake their house. They don't want to vibrate their house. They don't want it to rumble. They're not out there trying to create a rock concert. And it's so hard to explain to them how impactful it is just to have that bass available to reinforce the sound and just to experience it, not just listen to it. Like, we're already putting speakers in the ceiling and not listening on our phones.
Right.
Like, why not take it the next step further?
Everybody says they don't want that low-end subwoofer until they have their first Halloween party, right? Or their first New Year's Eve party, or their first birthday party, and everybody's starting to dance and have a good time. And they're like, man, it's not playing loud enough, or I'm not getting enough low end, right? And that's where that sub and the better products really shine.
So, Marc, I think you live up in the north. Are you in Minnesota?
I do.
So, for those of us who live in Texas, which is where Keith and I do, and the pleasantness of the fall is starting to make going outside not a deadly experience.
I'm not in Canada, Nigel. I'm not that far north.
Okay, all right. So, but for, it's lovely, in the fall in Texas. So I want that music experience outside my house.
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well as inside. That's really a segment that's changed a lot recently, isn't it? There's a lot more there than there ever was.
Oh gosh, it's incredible. I mean, if we look at what's happening in the world today, people are doing staycations, right? They're not taking their vacation and traveling outside the country or traveling at all. They're taking their funds and they're bringing them back home and they're spending them on their house. And what's interesting is, obviously, this COVID hit us in the March-April timeframe, when typically that's when the country warms up and everybody wants to start spending time outside. So we've obviously seen a huge boost in the amount of time, energy, money, focus people are spending outside. I mean, Las Vegas, for example, which is where our corporate headquarters are, where we're located. If you want to get a pool right now, it's about a 4 to 6 month delay to get a pool, right? Where typically in Las Vegas, you're in the desert, you can get a pool, 3 days from now, right? So if you look at what people are doing, they're spending a lot more time outside, right? So when you look at the outside world, how many of us are, I was looking for a Bluetooth speaker, how many of us are, grabbing a little Bluetooth speaker and walking outside and throwing it on the table and listening to music that way, right? Well, if you have 4, 6, 8 people over, you're having dinner outside, it would be great to just have music going from inside to outside and just that natural flow. And the music outside, I would say, is becoming almost as popular as the dedicated theater business that has been happening for years. And Keith, you're shaking your head. I mean, the outdoor world is enormous right now.
Yeah, well, we've definitely seen that. And without really getting into the product lines, I know you'll have a lot of different solutions, kind of your patio, bollards, the landscape solution. What do you find people are asking for, not from a product standpoint, but what experience are they trying to create?
So it's very interesting. Everyone always says to me, well, we just want to get some music outside. So when we're outside, we can be on one end of the driveway, another end of the driveway, and we can have what we call an equal balance of music, right? So what you don't want to have is two speakers on your house that when you go out by the pool or you're out by the swing set or the trampoline, you have to play the speakers on your deck very loud to hear them all the way out by the patio. So what we're seeing today more is people surrounding their property with speakers. Now, this is where I would strongly recommend not, as they would say, cheaping out, right? Or don't be cheap on this one, because here's what happens. You're going to put a lot of speakers outside, and this is where you need good quality outdoor product. And the reason being is because you're going to party outside. It's going to happen. I can't tell you how many phone calls I get from friends, customers, everybody that says, man, I had a party this weekend and I cranked it up and man, it just slammed, right? And that's where you have your barbecues. That's where you have your Memorial Day party, your Labor Day party, and your birthday parties, and July 4th. You think about all the outdoor parties during the summer that we have, you want the music to play loud when you need it to. Origin Acoustics, we just formed a new partnership, and brought on a company by the name of Ambisonic Systems. And Ambisonic Systems was started by a gentleman by the name of Jeffrey James Coombs, who's been building loudspeakers since the 70s, along with our other owners, Ed and Ken. So there's a lot of history. I mean, if you add up all the history of all the people that work for our companies, you're looking at probably close to 100 to 150 years worth of experience of people building audio. So our organization has really figured out how to deliver great outdoor sound.
Okay, so we talked about indoor, we talked a bit about outdoor sound. Strange question. Are there things you've seen people do, you'd go, whatever you do, never do that again? Are there some obvious no-nos when trying to get the best quality sound in your house?
Don't go to Radio Shack to buy your speakers.
Good luck with that.
Right? A couple mistakes that people do make. Deck speakers, patio speakers, right? If you have a dining area or a sitting area, don't put the deck speakers right above you, right? Because you're not going to be able to turn them up at all where you would still be able to have a conversation. That's a big no-no, right? Make sure you're not putting the speakers right on top of you. That's one of the most important things. Two, when you're buying a new home or you're hiring a professional to come in and he says, listen, let's get all the wires in all the rooms in your house. Do that. I can't tell you how many times I go to meet with a customer and they say, oh, we just bought this house. And yeah, well, we didn't really know if we wanted speakers or audio or TVs, anything. So we didn't wire the house. That's probably the biggest no-no that I've seen out of everybody. Get the wires in. It's not a huge expense, but wire everything. Put speakers in all the rooms, even just wires in all the rooms, so that down the road, if you decide that you're going to add something in the house, you cut one hole and everything you need is right there. Otherwise, we got to take drywall off. They're going to patch holes. It's a total nightmare. So absolutely make sure that you get the entire house wired prior to drywall ever going up.
Okay. And then don't put round speakers on the wall.
That is a good one.
That's got to be one of them.
Round speakers on the wall. But, it's very interesting. I do a lot of traveling around the country, and when you travel down south, now, Nigel, when I mean south, I don't mean Texas, okay? Down even further south, down in Mexico, Brazil, anywhere, Chile, what's very interesting is they still use square speakers in the ceiling. And the reason they do it is because everything down there is typically concrete. And they can't cut concrete circles. It's very hard. So everything in the ceiling down there is still square.
We're seeing a lot of square speakers here.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
We're seeing a lot of square lights now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have speakers now that you can order, and we provide square grills. So it definitely, it's round in the wall is weird, but square in the ceiling is not bad at all.
All right. Well, listen, we're as ever, and what I thought our time is slipping away. You can keep us educated and informed a lot, so we may want to invite you back. But before we lose you this time, we play this game maybe in inverted commas, where 3 quick questions, 3 quick answers. Question number 1, what is the home technology? What's the piece of home automation or home technology that you think you could not live without?
Oh, man. I could actually live without the internet. Believe it or not. My wife and I were talking yesterday, and she says, do you want us to just take away all the TVs? And I was like, yeah, I'd probably be okay with that. The one piece of electronic device in my house that I would not want to get rid of, well, I guess I can't say electricity, but I would venture to say probably my refrigerator. I need my refrigerator. I love to cook, so my refrigerator is very important to me.
That's great. Is there a job you've seen recently or a place you've done and you went, wow, that's just amazing? And is there a quick story around that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Here's my favorite one. About 2.5 years ago, I know it seems long ago, we had the opportunity to put our products into the most expensive home ever for sale in the U.S. And it was done in Bel Air. And the show actually hit, the house hit many shows of a millionaire listings and all these different shows. This house had a helicopter pad on the top. It was done in Bel Air. It included about 60 pairs of our D108s. Now they're D109s, which is our most expensive in-ceiling speaker. It was just an incredible project, and we were so lucky to be a part of it.
Good. Well, next time I'm in LA, you can invite me to come and stay in your new home.
Hey, it comes with its own chef and its own work crew. I mean, it's got 3 swimming pools. It's absolutely amazing.
Oh, how people suffer. Finally, if there was one thing, one gadget, one piece of home automation you can't do that you'd like to, you say to yourself, I wish I could. Is there anything that's ever struck you on that?
A piece of home information. Yes, I would absolutely love 2 gadgets. One, a gadget to empty my dishwasher, and a gadget to fold and put away my laundry. So if I could find a gadget that could do those 2 things, I would be extremely excited.
Okay. Well, we asked this question because Keith and I are setting up side businesses, but I think that one may... that might be a robot that we have to do that.
A child, I think, is what you're looking for. A child.
Yes, exactly, Keith. Yeah, it's called a child, right? Yeah. I would like it automated so I didn't have to do it anymore.
Okay. Well, listen, Marc, that was really great. There's a lot of great information in there for our clients and our partners. We'd really thank you very much for spending time with us, and we'll catch up with you another time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time, Marc.